everyone, and welcome to episode 296 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. How's it going this fine Monday, Richard?
Hey Seth, I'm doing well. How's it going?
Not doing too bad. We actually have a couple of really big topics to talk about today, but before we get into that, we have another co-host in Krim. What's up, Krim?
Hey, morning, Seth. Lots of news today, yet, well, there should have been more things happening today, but I guess only, a little bit of news came out of the BNR.
Yeah, so today, our two big topics. We got a BNR announcement, which we've been waiting for. So we're going to talk about that and what Zendikar Rising Standard looks like post-BNR. And then we also got some Secret Lair news. And I know we get Secret Lairs all the time, but this is kind of bigger Secret Lair news than usual, along with a couple of spoiler cards from the Secret Lair, which we'll get to. And then, of course, answer your Fishmail as well at the end of the cast. But before we get into all that, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit. And if you ever tried to sell your Magic cards by listing them, it's so much work. You gotta sort them, you gotta type them into buy lists. It's just a huge hassle. Well, if you're looking to avoid this hassle and all the time it takes to sell your cards, Card Conduit, this new service from the folks at Card Hoarder, will sort, grade, and sell your cards for you. And once your shipment is processed, you'll receive the proceeds minus their fee, and you can get 10% off right now by going over to cardconduit.com/goldfish. So thank you so much to Card Conduit for supporting the podcast today. And let's talk Magic. Let's start with the big BNR announcement. We've been waiting for a few days now. I think the middle of last week we got the announcement of the announcement. Richard, what changed?
All right, they did it. They went back and fixed their mistake. Uro is banned in Standard. Period. That's it. Uro is banned in Standard. Effective immediately.
I will say, this is the first time that we've had a spoiler card banned, I believe. So there is that. We did get to preview Uro, and it lasted, 9 months or something?
Wait, we previewed Uro? We unleashed this abomination?
We unleashed. Sorry, everyone. Apologies. But yeah, so, geez. Krim, what do you think? We've been waiting. Standard, obviously, the brokenness of it for being right after rotation was pretty historic. We were seeing some of the tournament results this weekend from the SCG series, and some of them were just, absolutely shocking. 18 of the top 20 decks being the 4-color Omnath Uro deck. Just ridiculous. Essentially very close to a one-deck meta already. Krim, is this banning going to fix it? Are we back to good Standard now?
Probably not. Uro and Omnath were some pretty big, issues in the Standard, and cause it just kind of, it's just like before the 4-color ramp deck had 2 cards, right? They had 2 cards that required no deck restriction whatsoever. They just automatically gain life. They pad your life total. They they bring a threat to the table. They draw a card. They do multiple things in one, right? So, now they just only lose one of their tools. Omnath is still pretty up there as a problematic card because, at least in this format, it just feels like ramp is so disgusting that there really isn't any issues with playing a 4-color card. Omnath should be a lot harder to cast than it actually is. So I still feel like there's, it may slightly help with that matchup. Now I don't have to main deck 50 ways to hate out the graveyard, but Omnath is still an issue.
Yeah, I'm not convinced this banning does much of anything, honestly. If you look at the 4-color Omnath deck, and you take out the Uro, take out the Uros and replace that with Cultivate, or with Beanstalk Giant, or with something else, I'm not sure the deck is significantly worse. Is it worse? Yeah, it's worse to some extent, but I don't actually think it's going to really be a huge deal, and I expect that deck is still going to be really, really strong. And then the other side is, if you look at the metagame page, one of the decks that was actually trying to compete with the 4-color Omnath deck was Sultai Midrange or Sultai Control. That's a deck that is exclusively an Uro deck. Like, without Uro, I think that deck just goes away. I don't think it exists anymore. So I think there's actually an argument that this, that this banning, like, doesn't hurt 4-color Omnath a significant amount, but it actually removes the other, like, fringier, Uro decks that are trying to compete with the Omnath deck, and maybe actually, like, makes the format less diverse in a really weird way, if that makes any sense.
You say Uro is the hero we need to defeat Omnath? Like, what?
I mean,
what timeline is this?
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of last year at this time, honestly, when we banned Field of the Dead. And then it was, you know, Oko that took over.
Season.
And then a month later, after Oktoberfest, we ended up banning all the Oko cards as well. This seems a little similar to me. I mean, I'm really trying hard to maintain hope. I guess if there's something I will say, I do feel like Rogues improves a bit. Like, one of the biggest issues for Rogues was milling over Uros, and that was, like, super devastating for Rogues to the point where I think it made the deck, like, borderline unplayable, just that one synergy. So maybe, like, Rogues can move up in the meta? Can that actually, like, the thing is, like, what made the Omnath deck so good is not, like, part of it, I guess, is it can go long and grind out value with Uros and Omnaths, but it just has these ridiculous turns where you just are, like, casting multiple Genesis ultimatums, let's say, on turn number 4 into, like, Ugins and just, like, essentially comboing off. I don't think getting rid of Uro changes that aspect of the deck at all. Like, maybe you lose a little bit of the late game resilience, but it seems like the deck might even be better at comboing off on turn 4, having a more consistent ramp spell like Cultivate or Beanstalk Giant over the Uro in the deck. So I think you're still going to be seeing these screenshots and these games of just like, oh, I played against the Lotus Cobra deck and they ramped into Omnath and then they went off on turn 4 and that was the game.
Yeah, like even on Rogues, the thing here is you can't let like something like Omnath resolve or an Ugin or a Genesis ultimatum. So they're definitely not short any threats. Although, like, yeah, I guess like you had mentioned, it like not milling Uro will be a benefit, but I just still think there's too many things in the standard that are insanely problematic that do too many things. Like mostly just like ramp. Like, I know that it sounds bad when, like, you know, I love playing blue and all that stuff, and, like, naturally, those decks, the ramp decks, beat on blue, but, like, the ramp to this level is just absurd. I don't even know what market this caters to. I don't know who actually really enjoys this much ramp.
It's kind of funny because we have been saying that for a year, too.
Right.
Like, just to make that clear, like, this is kind of the same issue we've been talking about. But Richard, go ahead.
I'm sure there are ramp players somewhere who are having the time of their lives, right? Like, when Krim had Teferi, like, big Teferi, he was like, this is great. Everyone's like, who enjoys control? Like, I want to...
No. I mean, like, it's not
Back
even like
topic.
that. It's like, like, example, like, yeah, I know people didn't like
I get what you're
control.
saying. I'm just trolling. But, okay. Say you are head of the group that puts out ban restricted announcements. What would you do? What would you have done instead of just Uro? Sounds like you guys want additional cards. So what are the additional cards that would be on this list?
Omnath, Lucky Clover, Forest.
So,
Forest is banned.
Things that produce green mana.
So I think, so from the perspective of a player, I was thinking the minimum was we were going to get Uro with another older card, maybe like Escaped from the Wild to the Wilds or Genesis Ultimatum banned. So I was thinking that was like the minimum. And then as I was also hoping some of the cards that Krim mentioned, maybe Embercleave, I wouldn't mind not being in the format, like Lucky Clover. I wouldn't mind more of a reset of the format, which we didn't really get at rotation. We kind of just like continued on with the ramp thing from before rotation. So I was hoping for something like that. On the other hand, this is another pretty clear sign to me that Wizards is just really not interested in banning new cards. So I think from their perspective, I think they view banning like Omnath or Lotus Cobra right now as like kind of a non-starter because that seems so obviously the right thing to do. So I assume that just was not even an option Wizards was willing to consider at this point because the set just released on Friday. People are still trying to get their, you know, collections built on Arena. Wizards needs to sell Zendikar Rising, like, and not even in a conspiratorial way. I don't think. I think that's just like they need to sell the set, and what's going to be bad for selling the set would be banning several of the best cards from the set like 2 days after the set releases. So I would like to see much more.
Omnath is on the collector's booster.
Yeah, it is kind of the face card of the set to some extent.
Sometimes you gotta amputate, right, to move forward.
Yeah.
I feel Wizards is like, we saw this Oko, we saw this Earl, right? They're like, it's fine. We'll just ban the support cards. And then it never works. And then when the next set comes out, the first emergency BNR, like 3 days later, Omnath, gone. Lotus Cobra, gone. Like, guarantee it. Like, write it down. I know how this will play out, right? Like, they just
like,
you know what's bad for selling sets? No one plays your game, period.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
exactly.
Who are we saving at this point? Like, are paper players really buying, you know, a 4 set of Omnath, like, pre-orders? Are they still doing this? Like, you never know when a card's going to get banned or your deck will get banned. Like, maybe they don't hit the Omnath. Maybe they hit the Uro and Omnath is not a deck anymore. You still wasted your money, right? So, you know, like, these bannings have an effect. And, like, I won't even invest my digital currency into Standard, right? I'm not going to invest my physical currency into Standard because I know Standard is going to be a mess for a while. Right? So there's no point, right? Let someone else play test for Wizards with their money. Once it's all sorted out and I'm relatively sure there's no more bannings, maybe I'll buy some cards. Right? So I feel this is just not good for anyone, right? Like, you don't want this to keep happening. And I thought something was going to happen at rotation. Remember, they did the big banning before rotation, and then rotation happened. I thought they would go more extreme this time. Maybe they would errata Omnath or something, or I don't know, but they just can't keep doing this, right? Like, we have no faith in Wizards producing a playable Standard on set release anymore. So, like, are you really going to buy cards, let alone, like, collector boosters? Like, instead of a $30 Mythic, do you want to pay for an $80 Mythic that may not be playable? Right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I did some research in a video and an article about bannings over the weekend, going back to, like, what I would consider when this trend started, back with the Emrakul Smuggler's Copter ban back in January 2017. The track record on bannings has, as far as I'm, like, fixing Standard, has not been very good. Like, most of the time, like, there's one 18-month period where I think Standard was pretty stable after the last energy banning through, like, Dominaria era and our Return of Ravnica block. Like, for those 18 months, Standard, yeah, there was, like, Big Teferi and Nexuses, so there were still cards people were complaining about, but we got through that without bannings. Compared to other periods, the meta was fairly diverse. Outside of that, we've been really averaging, like, a banning every other month, and it's been very consistent outside of that one period. It feels like more of the same. And the sad part is, this isn't going away. Like, I would be absolutely shocked if, because Uro gets banned, the Omnath deck is now just, like, fair and everyone's happy with Standard. So my expectation is, what's going to happen? We have the grand finals coming up in a couple of weeks. We're going to have the Omnath deck. Probably, I hope this doesn't happen, but I think it's probably going to dominate that format. Everyone's going to keep complaining, and then a month from now, we're going to have another, like, emergency banning, and this time it's going to be like Oko last year. We're going to have to get rid of Omnath and Locust Cobra. It's really, like, I don't know what to do, honestly. Like, it's so depressing, and I was hoping and thinking that Wizards was going to take more, I don't know, impactful action, I guess, this BNR, and really, like, I keep wanting to think that Wizards learned something, I guess is what it comes down to. This has been going on for 4 years now, and every time I think, okay, Wizard, they figured it out. They gotta be learning something from this. It's gonna be different this time, and then it's never different, and we do the same thing again 2 months later, so, what are you guys gonna do? Are you gonna play Standard?
I mean, it's first off, like, yeah, I mean, like, I'm still gonna try out Standard. Maybe Rogues now, like, you know, can thoroughly dunk the 4-color deck. Maybe unlikely, but I'd like to believe. However, I do think that by now they know, they just aren't gonna do anything, right? Like, they have to know that, like, what needs to go, but, like, you know, they aren't gonna ban it, and I don't know why not. Like, I mean, like, I know I joke about it all the time about, like, banning 2019 forward, but to be honest with you, can we just have rotation early this year? Like, for both sides,
again?
from everything from
yes, rotation again. Like,
the Standard card
again.
pool is 0 cards, okay? You just sit down,
Throne
flip
of
the coin, and
Eldraine
someone wins.
is like, yeah, like, can we just start from core 21, right? Like, if it's just core 21, and no, but then you still have the Omnath Menace, but I don't know, like, because Throne of Eldraine still has a lot of, like, broken stuff, right? And I mean, like, okay, Theros Beyond Death, I think actually, outside of Uro, like, I think Theros Beyond Death is fine. Core 21 is fine. And then, like, just this Zendikar Rising, I think Zendikar Rising is great if you just ignore Omnath. Because, I mean, we've had, like, Lotus Cobra before, right? We even had Lotus Cobra with actual fetch lands, right? So, like...
I'm convinced that we cannot use history anymore, right? That back then, like, exaggerating, but like 10 people played Magic, right? Today, like millions play, right? Like R&D has no chance, right? Like within 1 second of release, like more games have been played than they've tested for like the whole of development, right? And I think, let's say you hit them with the Lotus Cobra, let's say you hit them with the Omnath, something else will be broken, right? Like the next B tier card will shoot up to S tier, and like to get this balanced in one shot without any data, without any testing is like almost impossible, right? That's why every single game that relies on balance has a PTR now, right? Like imagine video game development, right? Back in 1990, you made your game, you released it, that was it, right? Then people are like, well, game's not very balanced. We should do like a closed beta. Wait, maybe we need open beta, right? Beta's not good enough. We need a beta every time we release a patch, right? So we have PTRs now, right? Like, this is what you need to do to get your games balanced. Now, Magic is just like, not only are you testing, you're testing like a year in advance with an internal team that can only play like, tens of games, maybe hundreds of games. Like, how many matchups can they play, right? Like, they can't play that many games. And then now you're in a state where you're banning cards. So you're banning cards, and now their testing is literally like a week, right? They have a week to test the new format to figure out if it's good or not. So it's just not possible for them to test, right? So whatever they do is most likely wrong, right? Either they like overban, like they can just ban like half the mythics and rares in the format. Then you're just like playing limited, right? Or they can ban nothing or just an Uro, and then something will still be broken. So I think the only true way to get like proper balance is PTR, right? Like have some kind of private test where they're like, what does the format look like without Uro? Turns out Omnath is still good. We'll remove Omnath. What does the format look like, right? And they got to keep iterating like that. But we can't do that because of tabletop paper Magic, right? So Wizards is kind of having their cake and eating it too at the moment. And I think that's just not sustainable. You can't have this digital game that you want streamers to play 40 hours a week at the same time coupled with this game that people play, twice a week at a F&M or something for a couple hours that requires physical cards printed a year in advance, right? So I don't know. I think Magic is just inherently in between a rock and a hard place. Like they can't get out of it. This paper/digital duality is holding it back.
I think that's actually a really good point. And I do agree with that because it would be super easy, or at least easier, if you could just nerf things. And even if you're willing to write off paper standard and be like, okay, like we just really don't care about paper standard. Standards on Arena, we're going to release sets and like nerf cards as necessary to make standard good. Then you still have Modern and Legacy and Pioneer and like all those formats. And what do you do? Like, what can you do? I think I agree with you. I don't know if there's an easy pathway out of here when you're trying to do both things and have this like stable paper game and also have this streamable digital game. And it's definitely a really hard place. And I should say I do feel bad for Wizards. Like especially the people that work for Wizards. Like I really truly believe that most of those people, or all of those people even, really do want what's best for the game. And I'm sure they're not any happier with the state of standard than any of us are and the community is. But there have been a few instances where things are like kinda, I mean, even Uro, like when I first saw Uro, go back and read the spoiler article where I previewed Uro, and like to me that was just like a jaw-dropping card as soon as I saw it. Like I don't think I've ever written a spoiler article where I was like, this is probably going to be the best card in standard, it's going to see play in other format, like without any testing, just like reading that card I was like, wow, this card is incredibly broken. So I do think, yeah, they probably go too far sometimes, and those type of situations should be able to be avoided, even without testing. Like, I don't think anyone had to test Uro to know that card was busted. Like, they should have been able to figure something like that out. But it is a super hard and challenging place for Wizards to be in, and I don't see an easy pathway out of it either, honestly.
Guarantee you, Omnath was a commander card. And they're like, no one's gonna play this as standard. It's 4 colors. How are you gonna cast this? So they didn't test it. Just like Field of the Dead, right? They're like, it's a commander card. How are you gonna get to 7 lands? That's ridiculous.
It's colorless. It enters play tapped.
I think Golos was the same way. I mean, I thought that was a commander card when it was first spoiled. I think I said that in like the spoiler video, like, yeah, it's, probably sweet commander, like 5 colors, you get to play stuff for free, and then that was like a legitimate card in standard.
Okay, so moving forward, I mean, do you think standard can survive another miserable format of ramp?
I'm very scared. I know Magic players love to say Magic's dying. That's the thing that Magic players have said yearly or more for the past 25 years, in good times and in bad times. But I do like
trade.
I do have legitimate concerns about standard because this has been going on for a long time. I do see people saying that they're not playing the format and they're not buying Zendikar Rising. Like you were kind of just saying that, Richard. Like, I'm not going to buy these cards. I'm going to wait and see what happens and then figure out if I do want to like spend my wild cards or whatever. So I do think there is a risk to standard, and by extension, Magic Arena, because Arena is so standard focused, you can't just do the trick like we used to do a few years ago and be like, okay, like standard sucks now, let's play Modern. Modern's in a decent place right now, or let's play Pioneer. Like, I guess Historic is there, and that is something, but that's still not much compared to Magic Online or Paper, where you can play Commander or Legacy or, weird fringe formats like Penny Dreadful or Pauper or whatever. You don't really have that on Arena, so I don't know. I do have a real fear about what standard is going to be like if this banning doesn't surprise us and actually improve the format. I don't know. Can standard stand another year of going through bannings every few months and people being like consistently unhappy with the format? I honestly don't know if it can.
I kind of agree with you on that, just because if I were somebody trying to get into the game, I might buy into a banned deck. If they would have just done like the bannings on like the cards that they should have done, that would have reduced the risk of me getting into the game, crafting these new cards, and then having to deal with the BNR, I don't know, a month down the line, right? Because at that point, let's say if I crafted the 4-color Omnath deck, even without Uro right now, I'd probably just, and it got banned, I probably just wouldn't keep playing, right? So I don't know, like moving forward, it is rough, right? Like it's super rough. Like I know what we all know what they need to do, but the fact is they won't do it. So I guess we're just going to have to see how this plays out, right, in the months following.
So question for you. Y'all know the people that work at Wizards as well as I do, I think. Do you think they're on board with this? Like, how much do you think this is edicts coming down from the top? Because I have to imagine, knowing like Aaron and Mark Rosewater and Gavin, these are people that really know Magic. They know Magic better than we do. They've been doing this for a really long time. And I keep thinking, like, do you really think that they are like, are they the ones doing this? Are they the ones like, oh yeah, get rid of Uro and standard's going to be great? Or do you think this is all like coming down from the CEO of Wizards, or maybe from like Hasbro to the CEO of Wizards, and all those people are like watching this train wreck in slow motion? The community views them as the people in charge of it, even though their hands are actually tied and they don't actually really have any other choice than to do what's, being decreed down from above them.
I think that there, to an extent, there could be some people, like, first off, reaching down and making it so that, like, hey, you got to leave that card in, so it, because it's in the new set. I do think that's potentially, because, like, I mean, it's apparent, right? Like, they aren't going to ban anything out of the new set.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a little column A, a little column B. I think, like, at some level, like, even the hand that's reaching down is trying to do something that they perceive as good. Like, I believe on some level, they're looking at the numbers, right? And they're like, look, every time we print an Omnath, the sales of Zendikar Rising increase by like 15%, right? And yes, we get complaints from all these enfranchised Magic players, and maybe tournament players dislike it, but the numbers on Arena are up or something like that, right? So I think there is something that is not like 100% clear cut, right? Obviously, if they print Omnath and sales are down across the board, everyone's complaining, they'll just change it. But I think it's not that clear cut. I think like Arena's probably stronger than it's ever been. And they keep having these bannings. So they're like, it's fine, right? You print cards, people buy them, you ban them, they buy other cards, money keeps going up. Like, so I think it's actually like some weird scenario like that where, as in franchise players, we're like, wait, look at the long term, right? Like if you keep doing this, the players won't stay around. But maybe short term, it looks fine to them, or it's not as clear cut because like they want to make money. They want players to play, right? So why are they doing all these weird choices, right? There must be other things that we're not aware of. Like maybe Standard has the most players it's ever had in the history of Magic right now. So why change anything, right? Like Field of the Dead, Oko, and Earl are all good for Standard, right? Like maybe not for tournament players, but for the other players it is. So I think it's not as clear cut as we think it is. Because otherwise, like it makes zero sense, right? Like Hasbro stock would be plummeting, no one would be playing Magic, you know, they wouldn't sell anything, like, you know. So I think there's more to it than we know.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more to it, but I mean, never know, I guess, entirely. I would have really liked to have seen something come out of this BNR that, like, explains also, like, the process, like, because they did acknowledge that 4-color Omnath is a problem, but I would love to know what, like, why? Like, why does this card exist? Why does this archetype do this much? You know what I mean?
We
like,
know why it exists. We know why it exists. Someone is like, you cannot ban anything from the new set. Fix Standard.
Right.
Right? Like, that's basically their requirements, most likely, right?
But like, I mean, the thought behind the cards themselves.
Behind it. Well, I mean, I think it kind of goes to what Richard said, and without becoming like full on conspiracy theory where people are like, oh, Wizards like print these cards they know they have to ban, and then they just like make a bunch of money and then ban them and do it again. Like, I still haven't gotten myself to the point where I could believe that they're intentionally doing that. Maybe I'm just being naive and like overly optimistic, but I mean, it seems like adding more lines of text to cards, like adding the ETB draw a card to Omnath, like that probably helps them sell more sets. They want cards from the new set to be in demand, for players to have to spend their wild cards on them and build a deck for the new set. I think another interesting aspect of this, which is underexplored at this point, is how much of it's just like the change from multiple set blocks to one set blocks. I'm kind of wondering if Wizards feels like they need to push each like set so much because they don't have the way to fill it. Do you remember like a few years ago where we'd get something like
Dragon's Maze,
or even I was gonna say like Return to Ravnica block, but you get like Return to Ravnica and it has part of the guilds in it and you have some of this stuff, but then you're like looking forward, you're like, oh well, we're gonna get the third set of this block and maybe my like Orzhov deck doesn't have this now, but like whatever Tisa should be coming, so it's gonna improve. Like, I feel like that whole aspect is missing, and Wizards has to be like, oh, we want landfall ramp to be a thing, so we're gonna like just, you know, amp it to 11 in this one set, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, like it's way too amped and this is broken, and then that repeats itself with like adventures, and then repeats itself with companions or whatever mechanic from the new set. So I wonder how much the block structure plays into it.
I think it has to like an extent, right? I mean, like before, like at the same time too, like think about how many sets they've had where just things go unplayed. Yeah. Right? Like think about Tezzeret from like, what was it? Ether Revolt? Actually unplayed. One of the main villains unplayed. There's tons of sets where just some big face stuff just doesn't get any light of day at all. So I think they're trying to go around that and make sure that things get played. But in doing that, oh boy.
So I'm a huge League of Legends fan, even though I've never played Legends of Runeterra. And they release a lot of new champions every year, and they also release like their philosophy behind them. And basically, when you release a new character, there's a learning curve, right? The more that you play with that character, the stronger they get, right? And the way they measure it is win rate. And basically, if they release a balanced character, right, when it reaches proficiency, the win rate is about like 50%. But that means to start, it must be 40%, right? Because when players learn how to use a character, they go from 40 to 50%. But if they release a new character at 40%, no one plays them, right? Because it's like an underpowered character. It sucks. There's no hype. So what they typically do is they release the character at like 52%. So even if you're like total garbage, your character is really strong. And what that means is when you get good at the character, your character is like insanely overpowered at 60% now, right? And they do this to sell the character, and then they tune it back, right? As the players get better with the character, they reduce the numbers on the character so that it actually is a balanced character. And Wizards is kind of doing this, right? Wizards has to release an over-the-top splashy card so that it is powerful and people will play with it immediately. If they don't, people are like, wow, this card is garbage and I'm not going to play with it. And it just doesn't sell, right? So, but there's also the thing of like, well, people haven't brewed with the decks. They haven't figured out the right synergies. So they release like cards that are just like no brewing needed, right? Like Uro, good card no matter what you do, right? And then over time, people figure out, the other pieces in their decks to increase the synergy and power of Uro. And then you end up with the abomination that's Uro. So this is like classic design, right? Like everyone does this. This is how all MMOs work. Anytime you add a new character or anything, you have to overhype it to sell it. But then you tune it back because it's digital. In this case, we're paper and this just lasts forever till we ban it. So I don't know. Like I think this is just inherent, right? Like everyone else has figured this out. Wizards has figured this out and it's kind of working. Maybe, but they can't fix it like other games do it digitally. So I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like the being able to fix it or nerf it is a necessary part of that. Could you imagine, like, I don't really play League, but could you imagine if they didn't like pull back on those characters after a while? What would the game look like after a couple of years if you didn't have the ability to like, underpower some of those overpowered characters after a while?
Yeah, I don't know. There's got to be some better way to sell packs than to just print like absurdly broken cards that have like lasting effects on all formats. Like how? Because then you end up with Dragon's Maze, right? Like that's like the actual worst case scenario for Wizards. They'd rather be selling packs.
Ixalan.
Yeah, they'd rather sell packs and have people complain than sell no packs and have no one complain, right? Like that's like the ultimate failure, right? So
yeah, I wish I could see an easy solution to the issue, but Wizards definitely, or Hasbro, I probably even more so, definitely wants the profits each quarter, and I think that's become more of a focus too, which is kind of like dovetailed with everything we're talking about. Is a few years ago, it didn't seem like Hasbro really cared about Wizards. Like they'd never talk about them. Wizards was just kind of like in its own little world. They did fine, like, and Hasbro let them be. But it seems like Hasbro, since Arena has become a thing, has taken a much more active interest in Wizards, and you hear Wizards in Magic in specific mentioned a lot by Hasbro now in earnings calls and stuff. That's one of their most popular franchises to talk about. So I feel like maybe we are getting a lot more pressure coming down from Hasbro as well that just wasn't there a few years ago. Anyway, we got another topic. You guys got more BNR stuff, or should we move on? We have another topic, which I would say
got more complaining to do.
I mean,
yeah, nothing without like that hasn't already been said, right? I mean, I feel like it's just
sad. Yeah. I'm sad. I'm just sad about Standard right now. Is my over? If I could sum it up in one word, I'm just sad about the state of Standard.
Same. Because like Standard is my favorite competitive format, and it just kind of bums me out to see it go through such a rough patch. And I mean, like, this is a real rough patch.
Rough and long. It's been happening for a while now.
And we've got to wait already until, like, because, like, now it just, all this makes me want is the next set to come out. Not because of the new set of cards, but because then now we can finally ban Omnath and all this other stuff.
All right, one more question. So we have the grand finals in 2 weeks, I believe. So we're going to see that. We're going to have metagame percentages and all that come out of it. Twitch numbers. A month from now, do you think we'll have more Standard cards banned within a month from where we are now?
Yes.
I'm going to say yes, too. I think around a month at least. Like, give or take that time frame, I totally expect once we see the grand finals metagame, I expect that we're going to be seeing another emergency BNR announcement in the near future.
Well, at least Commander Legends is almost on its way out, so hey!
Are you ready for emergency bannings in Commander?
No!
All right, so we have another big piece of news from today, which I know we've been kind of like negative today, and I don't want to just all have negative topics, but this is another one that personally I'm pretty negative about. We got a new Secret Lair announcement, and you're probably thinking, well, what's the big deal? We get Secret Lairs all the time. Like, they've mostly been an okay thing for Magic. Well, the difference about this Secret Lair drop, the Walking Dead Secret Lair drop, is it's got mechanically unique cards. So these are tournament legal black border cards that the only place they are available is buying this Walking Dead Secret Lair drop, and then you play them in Legacy and Vintage, Commander. They're not standard legal, thankfully, or modern legal, but still, these are real, true Magic cards, not Walking Dead flavored reprints, not Godzilla style reprints where it's got two names with a real Magic card and then like the IP of the crossover character. These are just real Magic cards that you could only get through a Secret Lair drop. What do you guys think about this? This is something we haven't seen before with Secret Lairs, and I wanna hear your opinions on it.
Okay, wait. You missed like some very important parts here, which is it's Walking Dead themed.
Walking Lead.
So from the hit TV show, we have two cards. I'll read them out so you guys know what we're talking about, right? So these are like new cards. They're not reprints or reskinned like Seth said. We have Negan, the Cold-Blooded, 2 red, white, black, legendary creature, human rogue, 4/3. When Negan enters the battlefield, you and target opponent each secretly choose a creature that player controls. Then those choices are revealed, and that player sacrifices those creatures. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a creature, you create a treasure token. Second card is Michonne, Ruthless Survivor, 3 black, green, 3/3 legendary creature, human warrior. When Michonne enters the battlefield, create 2 walker tokens. As long as Michonne is equipped, she must be blocked if able. Whenever Michonne and at least 2 zombies attack, she gains indestructible until end of turn.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say that from a flavor standpoint of the TV show, I think these are sweet. Like they can't, like Michonne having to be equipped makes sense because she's known for having her sword in the show, in the comics and whatnot. Like if we're like talking to me as a Walking Dead fan, I think these cards are home run on flavor. I love how they function. However, the other side of this is the fact that, example, they are only available through Secret Lair. And the whole idea behind that is a little concerning to me. And I love Secret Lairs and I love promos, but this is not a promo. This is a brand new card. And, like the issue with that is I think of like Nexus of Fate. I mean, luckily, or maybe not luckily, but I guess because these aren't, like there aren't many paper tournaments right now, sure. But like at some point, Nexus of Fate was like what, like a silly amount of dollars because it was only available through a buy a box topper, right? Or buy a box promo. So I do have some concerns with that. The cards themselves, I don't think they're like busted or anything like that. And like, and I told you already, like, I think flavor wise, it's amazing, right? But I mean, I am concerned about the principle behind all of it.
Yeah, I am very concerned about the principle behind it. Like, so if these were like the Godzilla cards, they're reprints, and then you want to put like the Walking Dead characters' names on them and use that art, okay, that's fine, go with it. If you want to make them silver bordered, like the My Little Pony crossover, sure, go for it. I think though that new cards and Secret Lair drops of any kind, like it's not about Walking Dead. It's not even a little bit about Walking Dead. If they just did a random, I don't know, zombie themed Secret Lair drop and printed unique cards in them, I would have a really big issue with it. And I feel like this is maybe a bigger issue long term than even the BNR announcement today. Like this just has so many ways that it can go poorly. We've seen Wizards' track record with these hard to get cards not be that great, like Kenrith was one of the top cards in Standard. That was a buy a box promo. You can only get as a buy a box. Nexus of Fate was another one. So we've seen Wizards' track record not be that good. Some countries can't even order Secret Lairs. So I don't know. What do you like? If one of these cards is playable, like, are you just at a huge disadvantage if you live in a country that can't order Secret Lairs? Apparently, I guess. Like, oh boy, this is really bad, I think, and I expect that it'll keep happening. Like, now that they've broken through this barrier, I would expect that it's just like full speed ahead, and I don't know. What do you think, Richard?
So I actually disagree with you guys. I'm surprisingly okay with this, for this reason, okay? So I have never wanted to buy any Secret Lair because I don't care about the promo aspect of it, right? Like I don't like, aside from like very select few, it's like, I can just get the cheaper version. But because this card is only available in Secret Lair, if I wanted something that must be blocked when attacked and makes zombies, I have to buy this card. So in that sense, Wizards gets money from me. And the reason I'm okay with it being a Secret Lair is because it doesn't matter that it's a secret lair, right? Like the reason we're concerned that it's secret lair is the price may be too high, right? It could, if this was like a standard card, it may be $5. In secret lair, it may be 30 or 50. But that is no different from the rest of Magic because Magic is still expensive. If I wanted Teferi's Protection, does it matter that it came in like Commander 2016 or something or the latest Secret Lair? It's still a $50 card, right? So like where it came from doesn't matter. It's just what the price of it is, right? And we already have expensive cards in Magic. So it's fine, question mark. And if it's like too expensive, like if it gets to like say $200, Wizards will just print more in some other product. So I feel like it doesn't effectively matter because cards are so expensive anyway. Like, doesn't matter if it came from Secret Lair, if it came from, reserve, it's on the reserve list, it's in Legends, some old set that hasn't been reprinted, Portal 3 Kingdoms, or the latest Secret Lair drop. Like, effectively the same to me.
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean that actually. I see where you're coming from with that. So I mean, like, it's also understandable. But like at the same time, I mean, you're right though. You are right that this could have just been, I don't know, like from the vault. I don't know, new cards or something like that, right? Like not future in the vault, like cards, whatever, like whatever they want to call it.
Future sight in the vault.
Yeah, future sight in vault. I don't name the sets, okay? So, and like at that point, sure, if we wanted something like that, we'd need to buy it. But I do wonder at what, like what else is gonna come through like products like this, right? And I'm okay with this one because once again, like the cards aren't, like insanely broken or anything like that. And I don't even think we're going to necessarily need this unless you're a fan of the show, or specifically want something like that functions in the way that they do. But like, I do worry about what else could be in the pipeline. Like what happens if, like there is something in like it's playable in standard. I guess that's when it would start mattering. For right now,
literally
I'm okay
Nexus
with it,
of Fate. Right.
Yeah, well, like I'm okay with it now, but I am worried about what could come down the line. So
So my concerns, and I do see what you're saying, Richard. I guess my concerns would be twofold. One is I'm not 100% sure like the legality of reprinting these, since Wizards do you think they can reprint them? Let's say Negan or whatever becomes a really popular commander card and it's worth a bunch of money. Do you think Wizards owns the IP in a way? They'd be like, oh, we'll put this in the next core set and we'll put this in the next commander deck. Or like, do you think this is a one-shot thing that they have set up with whoever owns Walking Dead, AMC or whatever it is?
That's a good question.
They probably can, as long as they keep giving the royalties.
Okay.
Wait. Okay, wait. There's a quote. In the future, we can imagine reprinting the same cards with new art or mechanically similar versions of these cards with different names and creative treatments. We don't have plans to do that at this time, but it could change. So they're open to like reprinting this somewhere, somehow, right? Like if these cards are insanely popular. So I believe they have like had the foresight to figure that part out of it.
Okay. So, that makes sense. Concern number 2, we've just spent most of the podcast talking about Wizards pushing cards to insane heights to sell products, maybe possibly even kind of knowing that they might have to ban them eventually because it seems like it's all about short-term profits. What is to stop Wizards from using something like this to print something absurdly broken that's going to dominate Vintage or Legacy or a Soul Ring that you need for every commander deck, to make a ton of money and make everyone buy it because you can't get it any other way and you need it to be able to compete in one of those formats?
They already do that to sell like their products, right? Like Uro or
But
Omnath.
The difference is
like,
I can
they
still
already
go,
do this, right?
but I can go buy a box of Theros Beyond Death and try to crack an Uro if I want to. This is for sale for a week, a day, something like that, like some very short period of time. So if you figure out a week after this goes on sale that you need it, you can't go to your local game store and pick up a commander deck and get it, or pick up a booster box of Theros Beyond Death and try to open an Uro. Like, it's gone forever until they eventually change their mind and decide to reprint it.
I see your point, right? Like I understand that argument, but I actually think to me it's the opposite, because there is an aspect of this card that's desirable beyond the mechanics. You don't have to make the power level absurd, right? Because as a Walking Dead fan, or there are Walking Dead fans, people will buy up these cards. You don't need to push power and toughness and abilities to sell the card. So I think by doing this, it allows them to print weaker cards but still sell them, as opposed to the opposite, which is like, you know, insanely powerful cards because like there's nothing else to sell the set, so we got to do it. So I actually think it's the opposite, although I do see your point, right? They could just go crazy and do that. I feel maybe Walking Dead is enough to sell the packs, that we don't need to break every format to sell the packs.
And I guess so far from the two cards we've seen, I think they are both Commander playable, and I think they're pretty good in Commander, but I don't think either one is like a Legacy playable card. So that's whatever fears I have not been realized at this point. So that's more of like a hypothetical for the future.
I guess there will be. You know, there will be a Legacy playable, like an accidental Legacy playable card, like a True Name Nemesis or something sitting around. You know that's going to happen sooner or later, on purpose or not, right?
So another question about these. Would you feel any differently if instead of something that people kind of like Walking Dead, it was, I don't know, something, I don't know, Rick and Morty, My Little Pony.
Ooh.
Like,
what's wrong with Rick and Morty?
I would love to see Rick and Morty.
What about My Little Pony? Well, like, what if the My Little Pony crossover was Black Border? Like, do you want to sit down to a Legacy game and have, I don't even know the names of My Little Pony characters, but have your opponent play their Stardust or whatever, I don't know pony names, but you know what I'm saying? Like, does that make the game better or worse for you?
For me, if I were to see that, I'd be okay with it. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't take away from it. It's just like seeing the Godzilla IP stuff. Like, sure, there's airplanes and whatnot attacking this gem raiser, but that doesn't bother me at all. Okay. Because, like, for me, it's like, okay, the world of Magic has multiple planes. It's a lot like, well, you know, which is why Rick and Morty would be perfect, because jumping from plane to plane, timeline to timeline, there is a timeline where there's planes and whatnot, and Jace has, I don't know, a Ferrari as he's like, you know, like, sure, right, whatever, at that point. I could see that.
What if we phrase it another way? What if to get your Monty Python set, you needed to take a My Little Pony set? Huh? Is that a trade-off you're willing to do? Like, you know, they can't appease everyone, but, you know, is it worth it to have something that you don't necessarily agree with to get a set you would really, really love, or like a crossover you would really, really love?
Personally, I would rather not have crossovers in Black Border. That's probably me just being a boomer and not like keeping up with the times or whatever. But personally, I would not get secret layers of stuff that I liked if it meant that we wouldn't have to deal with secret layers of IP crossovers at all. So for me,
do you think this one is
no.
egregious? The Walking Dead one?
I don't think it's egregious. Like, I don't know. Like, as I said, like, my biggest concern is the mechanically unique aspect of it. If they did it like the Godzilla crossovers, like, I didn't care about the Godzilla crossovers. I guess I kind of feel similarly about Walking Dead. I was just, like, never really into Walking Dead. So, but my main concern is that they're mechanically unique rather than the fact that they exist. Like, that's my only real concern. If it was the same exact card, but it was, you know, an actual Magic card and it was a reprint with two names, whatever, that's fine. It's not for me, and that's perfectly fine. Not every product has to be for me, and Walking Dead isn't, and maybe there will be one that I, you know, enjoy at some point. So,
yeah,
we didn't mention
Frogger.
this thing.
They have a Frogger set.
They have a Frogger one. Seth is sold.
Yes.
Secret Lair is $50
at the mouth.
$50 US. Number of cards unknown at this point. So, I mean, like, what if they just made it $10? They wouldn't, of course. Like, would we be complaining? Like, ultimately, this comes down to price, I think, right? If this thing ends up like desirability, cross playability gives you, and then supply or whatever gives you price. If this is just a normal $5 card, I don't think anyone would care. We will care when it's a $200 card, but I feel if it reaches like $200, Wizards will somehow, you know, cash in on the loot pinata here and like release it again somehow to get more money from us. So it's fine, right? So I feel it should work out in the end.
What about LGSs? Like, Secret Lair's already kind of hit on them a little bit, and they were already a little bit like, these aren't good for us with the reprints. Yeah. What do you think about Wizards now making brand new cards and selling them and cutting it out LGS?
So these are not, I'm assuming this is not Secret Lair, right? Oh, sorry, this is not LGS exclusive, right? This is the online.
No, this
Secret Lair.
Is Secret Lair through the website. Yeah.
I don't know. LGS owners have to chime in how much they hate this. I mean, Wizards has kind of been skirting this line where they release these and then they'll release a Secret Lair and make it LGS exclusive and see like, see, we're looking out for you guys. And then that's their answer to it. I don't know how well it works or how good it is. But it's really up to the LGS. Like, does the loss in revenue get bumped by like other exclusives, like from the vaults and secret lairs?
Yeah, I know. I guess that's true. It could be made up for in other ways, potentially. So, are you going to buy these? Like, I kind of like, so my general track record has not been buying secret lairs. But in all honesty, from just a purely financial perspective, the fact that these are exclusive cards and they seem commander playable to me, the ones we've seen so far, it makes me think, like, from a financial perspective, the correct thing to do is just, like, snap, max buy as many as you're allowed to get all 10 of them or whatever, stick them in your closet for a couple of years, and probably make a bunch of profit.
But what if Magic is dead in a couple of years?
I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, maybe in the very beginning, these are like worth a decent amount, but I can't imagine them, like, if it ever gets to a point where it's like ridiculous. I guess, hold on, I shouldn't say that because who knows, right? I mean, there's still tons of cards that still need to be reprinted. But like, I feel like right now, I guess it's something that you could buy if you were looking into it, like, from the financial perspective of it. But like, I think they would just reprint this though if it ever got ridiculous. Like, this is something they can definitely reprint, right?
I have no FOMO with these things. Like, I know the whole point of these secret lairs is the fear of missing out, but I'm like, there's one like every like literally 2 weeks, plus like the 8 million master set. Like, I'm sure I can get a new promo of some card I want like anytime I want. Like, I'm not at the point where I'm maxed out of promos, right? Where I'm like, I need one more promo to finish my deck. I'm like, look, I need like 100 promos, okay? And we're getting a promo like every 2 weeks, so I'm sure I can just wait for the next one. So unless it's something I really, really, really want, yeah, like, I don't know. I don't think hoarding them is the call, unless you just really want to invest in Secret Lair. But Wizards just keeps making all these products, right? So I don't think you can keep this up. I don't think if you were hoarding every single time-limited / limited availability product, like, you'd have to live in like a 5,000 square foot house in the middle of nowhere. Like, you don't have this capacity to hold all of this stuff, right? So yeah, I don't know about hoarding.
All right, one more possibly sacrilegious question, and then we got to get to Fishmail. So Krim, I know you're a Walking Dead fan. I'm familiar with the series. In all honesty, I thought Walking Dead was a thing that was big like 5 or 10 years ago. Is Walking Dead still like popular and cool today, or is this a thing that like was cool a while ago and is not really a thing anymore?
I would say, I mean, like for me, I don't necessarily always follow what's popular and cool, so I will say that I enjoyed it, and it definitely had its time. I don't think it's anywhere near what it once was, and like, I mean, I don't even watch it to this day anymore. I mean, like, I stopped reading it after, like, I think, like, what, issue 150 of the comics. So, I mean, I've kind of fallen out with the whole franchise because I just didn't like where the story went. However, I do think that there are still some characters that I hope to see. Regardless, I know that this I don't know if am I allowed to show that I enjoy this? Like, I mean, like, like I there are characters I want, right? I mean, I want from the comics.
Who would you like to see? Like, give me 2 or 3. Like, because I don't really know Walking Dead. Like, if you could pick another character or two to show up in this Walking Dead, who are you hoping for?
I mean, if Daryl isn't in this, I'm gonna be very upset. Like, then I will like probably have to like flip over some tables, but like like Daryl needs to be in this, and there's no way the main character Rick isn't in this, right? And I'd love to see like Glenn. Like, so Glenn is like this, like one of the characters that, I mean, by now if you haven't seen the show, I guess I won't say any spoilers, even though you've had like 10 years.
Yeah, don't spoil it for me. What are you doing?
No, don't spoil it. I was about to go watch it.
I'm just waiting for it to complete so I can binge watch it in one session.
Yeah. Okay. So I won't say any spoilers, but Glenn, Daryl, And like, I think those are the main characters I want to see.
Well, I guess we'll find out. We should be getting spoilers over the next couple weeks. And Grim, I'm glad you enjoy it. Like I said, like, I'm fine with the crossovers. I'm just nervous about the uniqueness of them. That is my concern. Not the fact that Walking Dead exists in Magic, but I just wish it wasn't unique cards. But maybe Richard's right and it'll work out better than I think and it'll be fine in the end. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. I got no faith in Wizards making good decisions at this point, so.
No,
Come on. It's something to sell cards that isn't power creep. Like, come on. You gotta cheer for it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, let's see the rest of the cards before we say it isn't power creep.
They're like, well, what if we put power creep and IP on it? Look, imagine all the money that we're rolling in.
All right, Richard, we're kind of running long, but let's hit up some Fishmail before we wrap it up today.
All right. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. Gust H98. Can we discuss a way to make arena economy better? The fact that 60% of resources are worth nothing on a digital platform is insane. I think dusting is still the better solution. Even the uncommon/common wildcards that pile up, can we get a way to utilize them? Have you guys actually felt the crunch from Zendikar Rising with the additional MDFCs?
Oh, yes.
Yes, definitely.
I have like actually one mythic wildcard to my name right now.
Yeah, I usually have a little bit of a stockpile at least, but I know I've spent more money than a typical set on Zendikar Rising, and I still don't have completely everything from the set yet that I could possibly need. So I'm still having to spend some wildcards. So I've definitely felt the crunch. I would like dusting, obviously, or giving away wildcards more frequently or whatever, like something to make the economy a little bit more forgiving. And maybe, I don't know, with all these bannings and all the upheaval in Standard, maybe that would be a way Wizards could like buy a little community goodwill in a time when Standard could really use a little bit of community goodwill.
We heard your we heard your complaints. One common wild card to everyone who logs in this weekend.
Yep.
You got to play like the way I play. This is what I do. Okay, every set release, I grind limited to get like a good base of cards to play Standard. Okay, so I like grind usually my way to Mythic or something. I accumulate like a big pile of wild cards. Then I look at the Standard metagame and I'm like, seems like something's gonna get banned. It's not balanced. I'll just wait out. So I don't build a Standard deck. And then the next set comes out, I just grind up limited again to build a Standard deck. And then I don't build a Standard deck. And now I have like 1 million wild cards. So if you do that, it works out. Just don't play Standard. Just keep playing limited. And you get lots of wild cards.
So the secret to playing Standard is not playing Standard, if I'm hearing
Exactly.
Whoa. So what you're saying is if I don't use my wild cards, I have a lot of
You
wild
just conceptualize.
cards.
You're like, on this turn, my opponent would have burrowed. And on this turn, I would have scooped. And you're like, okay.
If I don't have wild cards, I have. If I don't use them, I have them. Whoa.
Or the other trick is to play the same deck through every Standard, like Teamer Adventures, where you're like, this deck hasn't changed in like months. You can just keep playing it over and over again, regardless of whether it's good or bad. You know everything. You know the deck when it's good. You know the deck when it's bad. It's fine. You become one with the deck. This is an interesting question. JC Thacker, would Standard be better if you could only have one of each legendary creature or planeswalker in your deck? One Oko, one Uro, one Omnath. Like, we're literally Hearthstone here.
Yeah, we're Reno Jacksoning it up.
Does that make it better or not? I will say that one of my big concerns, I might have been more open to this a few years ago, but now Wizards, there was actually just some data. I think it was, Knox that posted on Twitter about how many more legends we get today than in the past. With Wizards like really focusing on Commander and making lots of legends every set, I feel like that would probably not be a good thing. And it would, but maybe that's like one of my criticisms of the last year of Standard is so much variance being reduced from the game. Maybe making important cards one of would be a way to get more variance back in the game, and also like hit on some of the arena issues where getting one copy of each card, which we see people like playing Brawl specifically for this reason, a little bit easier to do than getting playsets, especially with mythics and so forth.
All right, last question. GU1 Duck. Conventional wisdom is bans hurt confidence in standard by burning invested players. Are they also good PR for those cards in EDH? If EDH drives sales, there are fewer standard players. You can reimburse on arena. Does that wisdom still hold up? I will say it is not like a terrible idea where you're like, wow, Oko is so broken that he's banned in every format. I should put him in my EDH deck.
Yeah,
that's not a terrible thing. The infamous Oko memes.
I tried that. It does not work. I mean, it's funny every now and then you get somebody's soul ring to become an elk, but like 90% of the time, I feel like that doesn't always work with EDH.
Yeah,
you know what I love about EDH too is that no matter what, it always seems to self-correct itself. Like it's able to correct itself, right? Like I mean, it never gets too broken, and if it does, it goes in CDH.
How many of the cards that we've had banned are actually good in Commander, though? I guess it works for some cards, maybe Uro or even Oko, but like Fires of Invention, I've never seen anyone play that. Like Teferi Time Raveler outside of Crim, and mostly people don't play that. Cauldron Familiar, so I don't know if there's like that strong of a correlation between cards that are so good that they're banned in Standard and those cards being playable in Commander, but with some of them it might work.
Field of the Dead?
Field of the Dead, yeah.
Golos.
I mean, that one was designed for Commander.
Omnath? I feel like for the Mythics, it probably actually works. Or I don't know if it's just they're popular in EDH because you can't play them in Standard, so everyone who owns them are like, yeah, we'll just put them in our EDH decks. But,
that could also be it too, yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's the old adage, like, no, there's no such thing as bad PR.
Yeah, Wizards just wants people to tweet about Magic. They don't care if it's people yelling at them about how broken the game is. As long as you're tweeting about it, we're good.
Tweets are probably popping off right now. So, yeah.
All right, that's all the questions we have, all the time we have for questions this week. Thank you to everyone who sent them in. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 296 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So Richard Cribb, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we will be back next week to talk about whatever goes down in the world of Magic. See what Standard does over the next week. Maybe have some more to say on that. Hope for the best. Until then, have a wonderful week. And this is the crew signing out.